Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning.
As for Levant here in Toronto, the world headquarters of rebelnews.com, and for our very special live stream, we are joined today by our BC boss, Drea Humphrey. Drea, I think this is the first time you've been on our daily live stream, am I right?
I think I've been on for like a short amount. No. That was your show. So yes, this is the first time.
It's great to have you. You know, every day at 12 noon Eastern time, which is 9 a.m. Pacific time where you are, we take 1 hour to just kibitz, to talk about things in an informal setting. We're not scripted. We do have sort of a suggested list of videos that our producer Justin suggests. And the fun part is we take questions from the public through the chat window, which is just to the right of the video screen. Obviously, we can't talk to everybody because there are hundreds of chats, but we do make a point of reading all the super chats. That's what YouTube calls the special chats that people put a few bucks behind. Makes them brightly colored, makes them stick to the top of that chat window. The reason we really like those is because YouTube actually shares 70% of those revenues with us, so it's a good way to overcome the demonetization that YouTube does to us. I think the super chats are on. We recently just switched multi-channel networks, so I'm not sure if our ads or our revenue is working today, but we're going to have fun anyways. Drea, I think everybody watching has seen your videos over the months you've been with us, but I would like to really promote you today and your work with us, because we are in the second last day of the Viewers' Choice Awards for Best Rebel Talents. And so I want to make sure that people know you're in the running. And Justin, could you just show the website viewerschoiceawards.ca? If you go there, you have a list of our on-air talent. Kian Bexley, Drea Humphrey, Sheila Gunn Reid, Andrew Chapados, Avi Amini, Rahil Raza, David Menzies, and Tamara Ukulini. And by the way, that order is randomized. So whenever anyone goes there, it's in a different order. It's not alphabetical. It's not fixed this way. So there's no advantage to anyone if you're worried, well, why is Kian first and Tamara last? It's purely random. And you can only vote once. And what time does the voting close? Is it tomorrow or tomorrow? Is that when we cut it off?
Isn't it today?
Moving it to tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, just to give people maximum time. Anyways, Drea, my goal today is to make sure that you have a chance to put your best foot forward.
Okay, that's good because 2 days ago it hit me. What if I'm last? What if I'm the least rebel? Are you going to let us know, Ezra, who's the last?
You know, I don't want to, because whoever's in last place will probably take it personally. Someone has to be in last place, unless it's a 7-way tie for first place or whatever, which is quite unlikely. When we checked this morning, we had 8,000 votes. So the possibility that it's a 7-way tie for first place, I suppose that's theoretically possible, but it's just not going to happen. So I want to let you know, though, in the last 48 hours, we have had 3 different people in first place, and for quite a lot of it, the first place and second place were within 1% of each other. So this is extremely competitive. Anyways, we've got a few of your vids. Why don't we throw one video up and then come back and you and I will talk about it a little bit. How about one you recently did about church fines? What I hate about the lockdown is you're in a Walmart, a temple to commerce, no problem. Mm-hmm. You're at a Costco, worshiping materialism, no problem. But you go to an actual church, no, that's locked down. Here's a story you did, Drea, on that subject quite recently. Take a look.
Could say that BC's public health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, has had a change of heart. Or maybe that's a bad phrase to say it. I wish she had come to her senses when it comes to ordering the unfair restrictions that ban all religious gatherings across British Columbia. But no, still, we have malls that are packed for Christmas. It's Buggy to Buggy and Costco for Christmas. But if people try to gather to remember why the word Christ is in Christmas, that makes you selfish and a danger to society. And it's not that bureaucrats like Dr. Bonnie Henry can't do the right thing and make adjustments to what they've ordered. They could say that the churches, the mosques, the synagogues are in fact essential to those who feel they need to attend them to be spiritually fed. Although Henry has recently extended the events and gathering mandate to January 8th, 2021, she has made some revisions, or the Public Health Office has. Recently, indoor activities like dance class were banned, but now there's been an exception for children to attend such things. Adrian Dix came out and said that for families, they can now gather with their grandparents as long as those grandparents provide childcare. But unfortunately, for the grandparents who are physically unable to care for children, they're just tough out of luck. But there's no grace that has been given for places of worship. In fact, according to CTV, when Dr. Henry was asked about the churches that are starting to open up despite her forbidding them to do so, like we covered at Riverside Calvary Chapel in Langley on rebelnews.com, Dr. Bonnie Henry's response was, "Faith is not a building." I'm sorry, is this Canada or communist China? The whole reason we have the right to religious freedom and the right to religious expression is so that the government doesn't overlord us and tell Canadians how to worship, who to worship, or that they have to worship at all. No grace at all from Bonnie Henry. So here I am standing in front of another church who has happily complied with many COVID-19 safety measures in the past, including doing so today, social distance seating, hand sanitizer, and more. But they're also saying today that enough is enough. Oakland's Bible Chapel in Victoria, BC has opened their doors for the second week in a row, despite being told that they would be fined today if they do. So far, I see no bylaw, I see no police, but Rebel News is here to report on what happens today and speak to Pastor Dan Anderson as well. We have fightthefines.com, and if this church gets fined, our amazing legal team will be fighting those fines. So make sure you head to fightthefines.com, that was a lot of Fight the Fines, to help support us making churches be essential. We're about midway through the sermon. No bylaw, no police, contrary to what you guys were told.
I am so pleased. I am so pleased to be. We don't want to fight. We don't want this conflict. We just want to be able to worship. We want to be able to come together and freely enter our church and worship our Lord. That's what we want to do. And we are more than happy to comply with the 50-person limit, the masking, the social distancing, all to keep others safe. But it comes to a line of, we believe that it's essential that we gather as physical people at Christ's birth. It's Christmas.
I know.
When has this happened in history? That Christians, well, I guess in the world, of course, Christians are persecuted. There's underground churches everywhere. But I'm living in Canada. This is unheard of as far as I can remember.
The fear that our world is living in today is crippling people. And it's killing our communities. And it's killing our families. And it's killing our society.
All right, Dan?
All right.
You did your sermon, and no bylaw, no police officer.
Thank God. So far, I mean, that's great. We've been praying for it, and looks like they have chosen not to visit us this morning. So we're quite happy with that.
Yes, thank you for that discretion. Now, tell us what happened. Give us a little bit of the backstory. You were told that the police would be here today, right?
Yeah, we got a call a couple of weeks ago asking if we were abiding by the COVID guidelines, and we pulled up our socks a little and decided to do a little better on that and abide by all of them. And then when the latest mandate came down at the end of November, we were told nobody in the building. no more than 6 persons, just like everywhere else. That was supposed to be the thing, that there's only 6 persons to gathering limits and no large group gatherings anymore.
But the 6-person limit you're saying, but however, there's something else that is allowed to happen more than 6 people in this church often. Do you want to explain what that is?
So when the order came down, we abided by it immediately, but then we started thinking about it, and there were some things that made us really rethink and eventually made us change our minds. And one of the biggest things was that in our building here, we have a before and after school care program that continued to run right after they made those orders. So they shut us down in our own building. We can't meet in our own building, but our before and after school care program can with there are dozens of kids and workers, and our food hamper program that works on Thursdays. We can have people in here working to do that. Why can't we responsibly be in our own building just like we were before? That was a big question we had. And then when we called the government to ask about one of our meetings, our youth meetings specifically, they wouldn't really answer us as to whether we were allowed to do that, because youth activities are allowed and at that description, but religious gatherings aren't. So we kept asking them and pressing them, and eventually they just said, like, look, you're allowed to do it.
It's a great report. It goes on now. Drea, I want to ask you, so far in the story, that's a good news story. They were not ticketed, police did not come, but that is not how it always is. Can you give us an update on things? I mean, in fact, that was a great video. You were right there, you were talking to the pastor, but in some ways that actually hides the reality, right? Give us an update.
Well, yeah, as far as I know with that particular church, so far, so good. But if we backpedal to a previous report with Riverside Calvary Chapel in Langley, BC, they were hit with a $2,300 fine. They were having 3 services that day. So that was the first service. And then later on that day, there was, we did see the police walk away from the situation, as well as the bylaw officers. So even though they had been told that for the second and third service they would get fined, they wouldn't. But as far as I know, from now or since then, that church has still been open and hasn't been ticketed, which is great. However, in the Lower Mainland, the first churches to open up that were caught, I'm sure there's plenty of underground ones happening, and even in people's homes, were 2 Chilliwack churches as well. So something really funky has happened in the last week there. I was actually applauding the Chilliwack RCMP. I think I said it in my follow-up report at Riverside Calvary Chapel, because they had come out with a statement that said they were not going to be fining religious services. They were going to take an educational approach. So I don't know what happened in between that, which I believe was December 2nd, to just a couple of days ago. But now, if you look at the CTV News, Chilliwack RCMP is recommending charges after 3 churches continue to hold in-person gatherings.
Justin, can you grab that news item that Drea refers to? So can you tell us the headline of that, Drea, so Justin can search?
Chilliwack RCMP recommend charges after 3 churches continue to hold in-person gatherings.
I got to tell you, it is my view, and I would want a legal expert who's more familiar with the laws of policing. It is my view that health orders, health mandates are not properly examined by police. They're not, that if you're a health officer or a bylaw officer, you do that. But it would be like sending a tank or a battleship to swat a fly. It's not only inappropriate to have police with guns attend at churches to shut them down. That's gross, that's un-Canadian. As you point out, that's what they do in China and Iran and places like that. But I don't even think it's legally possible. My review of the Ontario legislation suggests to me that they need a court order, that if the health officer wants the help of police, they have to go to a judge and get a sort of court order, and even then it can only be used in limited cases. So I think that these churches not only have a moral grounds to object, but a legal ground, and I hope, Drea, that you will convey to everyone you meet and everyone you talk to that if a church is getting a fine, bring it to our attention and we will fight it for them for free at fightthefines.com.
Absolutely. I'm telling as many people as I can. And it's such a blessing to be part of a Rebel team that is offering that, because this is ridiculous. That is, persecution of the church is officially here, in my opinion, when they're getting charged. And these churches are being responsible. It's not like they're throwing, caution aside to the wind and having 200 people in there back to back and, hugging and running around and things like that. They are practicing social distancing. Yeah. They are trying to be mindful of the 50-person limit. They are tracking who's coming in the door. And in the second follow-up Riverside Calvary Chapel report, I actually in the same city, actually a supporter actually sent me an email and said, in the same city, there is a movie or a TV show being filmed in a church. And so I went there. Yeah, I showed that in the report in the exact same city where Riverside Calvary Chapel is.
That's incredible.
You can
Justin,
pretend.
If you can call that up, including the clip of that Drea refers to, that'd be great. Hey, Drea, can I just interrupt for 1 second? Because there is a change to our Super Chats today that I want to let our viewers know, because it's so much fun to do the Super Chats, and I mentioned that we do that every day, but I was just informed that our Super Chat function is not working today. And it's not because we have been punished by YouTube, which is always a possibility. It's because yesterday we ended our contract on a very friendly basis with something called a multi-channel network, which is a group of YouTube channels that sort of have a common accountant and a common rights manager. And after 5 years of being with Oxmo, we just sort of said goodbye to them on very friendly terms. So unhooking from them temporarily lost some of our financial privileges. We have an account manager at YouTube who's working at expediting to get that back. So we may actually not have Super Chats for a couple more days, and in fact there's no ads on our videos either. That's not a punishment by YouTube. We will get those back. Hopefully it'll just be soon, because of course it's an important source of revenue for us, and people love the Super Chats. They love making their comments really bright. So we're gonna have to pick and choose, and I don't want to do so randomly, but I guess that's what we have. Pick and choose comments that we'll read in any event. Hey, Drea, I want to get people voting for you in the Viewer's Choice Award. I'm not showing favoritism. I want all of our talent to have a shot at this. And so I'd like to say to viewers, if you're as delighted with Drea's joining Rebel News as I am, if you love her coverage in British Columbia, go to viewerschoiceawards.ca and vote. You can only vote once. So once you vote, that's it. There it is. Who will win? I'm not on the ballot, but all my friends are. Avi Yamini, Kian Bexley, Drea, Humphrey, Sheila Gunnery, David Menzies, Raheel Raza, Andrew Chapados, and Tamara Ugolini. We're going to have the awards ceremony tomorrow night. So I think we're cutting off the vote tomorrow at like 5 p.m. Eastern or something like that. Okay, Justin, did you have any luck finding that other vid that Jerry was referring? Let's show the one that mentions the movie. That's crazy to me. You can't have a real church service, but if Hollywood wants to have a pretend church service, that's kosher. Take a look.
Rebel News, and last week I was here in Langley, BC, right in front of this church behind me called Riverside Calvary Chapel. Now that is where one of perhaps the lowest moments in Canadian history occurred. This church received a $2,300 fine for offering to open their house of worship and religious teachings, despite BC's public health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry's decision to ban all religious gatherings in BC. But you guys won't believe this, or maybe you will if you already feel that the government has been overreaching with some of their COVID-19 restrictions a few days after that report from last Sunday, which you can find the full report at rebelnews.com. I came across a large gathering inside of a church right here in the same city that is Langley, BC, that is completely okay with public health. Apparently, you can't go practice your freedom of religious expression in a church in BC, but if you're in the film industry, you can fill a church up because I guess watching a movie or a TV show is far more essential than freedom of religion here. Take a look. Yeah, you know what that is? It's a church behind me and it's packed. You know what it's packed with? The movie industry or the film industry. They got tons of trailers in the back. They've got tons of crew parking over there. This is a gathering inside of the church that is deemed legal by Dr. Bonnie Henry in British Columbia. But no, don't be like Riverside Calvary Chapel. Social distance, space it out, have maybe 25 people. I don't know. Maximum 30 per spaced out services. And you're going to receive a $2,300 fine because Dr. Bonnie Henry. But if you want to film a movie pretending you live in a country where you're free to gather for your religious purposes, then you can pretend to do that in the movie industry, but you can't do it for real. Now, it is true that the film industry does use a lot of COVID-19 prevention measures, including frequent COVID-19 testing, and it's great to see.
You know what? I think nothing shows the state of Canadian law, politics, media coverage than the fact that you can have a packed church if it's fake, if it's a commercial project, but you can't have a church if it's real. I'm very upset by that. And Drea, I haven't seen what you just showed there. I haven't seen that on any other media in Canada.
No. Yeah, me either. And I think that if more people in the church did see this, there would be more of a movement to, speak up on behalf of what's happening here, because it's absolutely wrong. In the most recent report that we did watch a longer amount of, the pastor says that they wanted to figure out if they could continue with their youth services or their youth gatherings, because in BC, youth activities are allowed. And so they kept calling the PHO, kept calling. And finally, the PHO said, you can, as long as it's not called a religious gathering.
Oh my God. So the same exact thing is good or not good, legal or illegal, depending on if you call it religious. That's the giveaway. That's the big giveaway there. Just so absolutely crazy. Folks, I regret that we don't have Super Chats working today. We are going to get those back as soon as possible. We don't have them today. But Brent Talbot asked, Drea, are you going to be at the Victoria rally on Saturday? I presume that's an anti-lockdown rally. I don't know.
Yes, I did just see that last night, and I was going to figure out if I'm going to be there. I might be there.
Well, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I know you're busy, and of course you have family obligations and things like that, but I know you have covered things on the weekend. I love your coverage of the rallies. David Nayan says, thank God you were doing the good work. Isn't that the truth? And now you do cover things other than the church beat, which I think is a very important beat and underserviced. One of the interesting things about the greater Vancouver area is there's a lot of Chinese Canadians, and you'll find people on different sides of the politics. There are pro-communist activists in the Lower Mainland, which disturbs me.
Yes.
But there are democracy activists, Uyghur activists, Tibetan activists, Falun Gong activists. There are plenty of Chinese Canadians, I'm speaking ethnically Chinese people in Canada, who love freedom and are terrified by and opposed to communist China, and how Trudeau is such a supporter of the Chinese dictatorship. It's a real battleground there, isn't it?
It absolutely is. In Vancouver, I think we're around 27% Chinese Canadians. So like you said, there is a diverse community within there, within that. And the amount of coverage is just so pitiful in mainstream media with all of the different concerns that these people have. I mean, it's quite frequent. I would say at least once a month, you can catch a protest that is, something that is not in favor of the Chinese Communist Party. So we've done a lot of coverage on that on Rebel News. So I'm happy to be a part of that too. But yeah, there's got to be exposure to this. I think everybody knows just how important it is to really shine the spotlight on how much influence Communist China has over the world and Canada.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to say those things because you get called a racist. That was the first move that Theresa Tam did when people were worried about the virus coming from Wuhan, China to Canada. She said, "Oh, that's racism." She literally said that's racism. She said that's the virus of racism. I'm not even kidding. That's what she said, and the Chinese government knows that works on typically white liberal leftists. So I think that anyone who criticizes communist China, the first reaction by the left is to call them names. Obviously that doesn't work with people who are ethnically Chinese. I know you interviewed a number of folks. We've got a clip of you talking to Uyghurs, which I've been to Xinjiang, China. It's the western region of China. They're slightly different ethnicity. You can sort of see they look a little bit different than Han Chinese. Lots of blue eyes, which is startling, at least to me. And it's Muslim. And of course, they're really being pushed down, like Christians are pushed down in China. It's funny because Justin Trudeau, I mean, he's a Muslim advocate everywhere else in the world except in China. Here's an interview.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that true? Here's an interview you did with the Uyghurs in Vancouver. Let's come back and then I'd love to hear you unpack what we're about to see. Let's take a look.
Their message and tell China to back off.
Boycott China! Boycott China! Back off China! Back off China! Today we are here to support and raise the voice for our Michael Kovrig and our Michael Spavor, who are illegally detained in China. China is the biggest bully in the world. China is the biggest land mafia in the world. China has land disputes with 17 countries in the world. And the South China Sea, which it shares with other countries, it has the dispute with every other country.
Hi everybody, my name is
If we buy Canadian products, we support our Canada. Boycott Canadian goods. Boycott Chinese goods, support Canadian goods. Boycott China, back off China. This is our slogan.
We represent a group in BC that are looking to acquire sovereignty. And by acquiring our sovereignty, it'll empower us to better deal with the CCP takeover. Right now, Canada is actually a corporation, and we are all subject to the monarch. It's a corporation of the monarch, right? And we're coming here to show other people that by gaining our state sovereignty, we'll be able to empower us and we'll be in a better position to help China and other countries deal with the CCP.
If you look at all the things that the CCP have done, the genocide against the Uyghurs, what they've done with Tibetans, and with what they're doing in Hong Kong, destroying a free society, the actions are comparable to the Nazis. Also, the way that they are menacing their neighbors like India and neighbors in the South China Sea. This is comparative to the Nazis, and we need to recognize this threat. And, first it starts with...
Very interesting. Now, I don't think any of the people we saw there are ethnically Uyghur. I think we saw some folks from India, including some Sikhs. We saw some, I guess you could say, old stock Canadians. And then I think that fella at the end there was more a Hong Kong activist. It's not an important point. In fact, it's fascinating that you have this multi-ethnic coalition for the Uyghurs. I just find Uyghurs so fascinating, and it's such a beautiful and exotic look to me. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe that's politically incorrect to say. But you can see that they're within China. They're a minority ethnically and religiously, like Tibetans are, and so they're persecuted. So I don't think it's inappropriate for me to point out that they look different from Han Chinese. They're sort of colonized. And one of the things that China does to both Tibet and Xinjiang, it's what Russia did. It's what the Soviets did during the USSR. They would Russify the colonies. So they sent millions of ethnic Russians to the different Soviet socialist republics to sort of water down any local dissent. And that's what China is doing in Tibet and the Uyghur province of Xinjiang, is trying to dilute, I guess is the word, the indigenous populations there. So that's why I mentioned the ethnicity. It's actually part of the battle there. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit. Tell me a little bit more about that coalition. It looked very interesting.
Well, it was very interesting. And actually later on in that video, there are a couple people speaking from the Uyghur community. And you're right, they look a lot like people from Kazakhstan, in my opinion, as well. But what was fascinating about that particular protest, I mean, I have covered protests that were specific to the Uyghur community, but this was a combination, like you said. There were actually people from Tibet there, Singapore, Hong Kong. I mean, this is what's happening on the streets of Vancouver. No coverage of that from the mainstream media. It's insane. I mean, you talked about Trudeau, backing the farmer protests in India. So why was there no comment about this, right? So, but yes, taking it back to the Uyghurs, absolutely, they're being persecuted. And they end up, if they do something wrong, whether it be, celebrating a funeral or growing a beard because it's a religious symbol, they're getting put into these camps that, China's government tries to say they're not concentration camps, and they're not. But basically what they are is brainwashing camps, where they have to recite over and over their loyalty to the CCP and things like that. So, I mean, there's so much funky stuff going on there, being forced not to have any kids through sterilization. This is huge. And a lot of it's been called genocide and things like that, but it doesn't get the attention that it deserves.
Yeah. It's very unusual. I remember when I was a kid, way back in the 20th century, and it was liberals and the left who sort of owned the brand of human rights, especially in foreign countries. They would always talk about, places very exotic that I had never heard about or been to, but they really, really cared about civil rights in those places. You don't hear that a lot.
Nope.
Certainly not with some of the world's greatest persecutors, whether it's China, Iran, Cuba, Venezuela. The left that did once care, I think they did, they're silent. And the media, I don't know why the CBC is they're willfully blind towards the human rights abuses in China. I don't know, because the CBC, do they want access to China? Are there pro-Beijing activists at the CBC? Are they just sucking up to what Trudeau wants? But whatever it is, like what you just showed there ticks all the boxes for a typical CBC story. New immigrants, visible minorities, interesting coalition, very, very feast for the eyes, human rights, foreign affairs, like just every single thing would make that newsworthy. And the fact that the mainstream media and the CBC especially were not there, that's curious to me. That's not an accident. That's an expression of a willful editorial policy at the CBC. That's how I feel about it. And these groups, they put out media, invitations. It's not like they're not aware of it, of course. So absolutely, it's a choice. Well, listen, I'm so glad you're doing that. And you've done a number of these, talk to people of different communities. You've also covered the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, which again, it's huge. It's basically China's empire. They're building an empire through diplomacy and through commerce and through incredibly one-sided trade deals. And it's called the Belt and Road Initiative. And I don't think it's being talked about, again, because it serves China. There's just a couple more chats that Justin has picked out. They're not really super chats, but Justin's going through them. One is from Jeffrey Cap. Super chat, hopeful. Have any of the church challenges been successful at having the charges thrown out? Do you know, I have some answers to that. Do you know anything about the Vancouver churches?
I think it's pretty new so far out here, so I haven't heard anything yet.
My answer to the question would be, We have had a couple of pastors have the tickets withdrawn against them. For example, in Calgary, Arthur Pavlovsky, he calls his church the street church. He got a $1,200 ticket for feeding the homeless. That was withdrawn by the Crown prosecutor after we lawyered up for him. Let me give you my thoughts on most of these tickets, and I think I shared that this morning with the staff meeting, and it took me a while to realize it. When you get a ticket for $1,000, like everyone's got a parking ticket, right? $30, whatever, it's a nuisance. And maybe bad people out there like me get the odd speeding ticket for, $150, and that's that really stings. But you get a ticket like this pastor I just mentioned, $1,200. That's like a baseball bat to the, that knocks you down. I mean, that's rent money. That's a significant portion of your savings, especially in these tough economics. So you get hit with a $1,000 fine, you're knocked on your back. And some of these, we've seen a case in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, $14,000 fine for a church. $14,000. Now that's the kind of thing that could bankrupt a person. But go ahead, Drea.
Well, I was just going to say, and that church is primarily a community for the homeless.
Oh yeah, homeless, very poor people.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the one in Prince Albert, Aboriginal customers who just need all sorts of basic social service. But here's my, I don't know if I'm going to call it an insight, but it felt like a epiphany when it dawned on me. If you think of these fines as traffic tickets with just a couple extra zeros on them, I think that's the proper way of thinking about them. You're not going to jail for these. You're not getting a criminal record for them. They're not an extremely long, drawn out, 2-3 year saga. In fact, if these ever go to court in 6, 12, 18 months when the courts open up, because remember, the courts are on semi-lockdown too. So justice is slow at the best of times. It's slow to a crawl now. So if you get a ticket for $1,000, $2,000, you're shocked. My advice to you is go to fightthefines.com and let us help you. Number one, it'll give you some peace of mind. Number two, I think we're going to get a lot of these thrown out before even a hearing.
Yeah.
Number three, if they go to a hearing, that's 2021, 2022. And even if, God forbid, you lose, nothing deeply bad is going to happen. And we'll, I don't want to promise that we'll pay the fines. We don't like to pay fines. We like to fight fines. But I think a lot of these are going to be knocked down. They might all be thrown out. You're not going to go to jail. You're not going to get a criminal record. It's hard to say this is a light thing when the price, but the very extremeness of the dollar amount is a reason that they would be thrown out. So I'm not here to say you shouldn't have any worry. I'm here to say you should manage your level of worrying. And a way to manage it is to because I've asked Sarah of our team to count them up. I think we've taken over 200 cases now. And the number one thing is just to tell people, calm down. Yeah. They're not going to bash down your door. They're not going to lead you off in handcuffs. It's really just an aggrandized traffic ticket. I don't even think the police have proper authority to do the things they're doing. It's not a police matter. These are not crimes. These are not in the criminal code. It's like a ticket. It's like if someone found mice in a restaurant, they'd get a ticket from the health authorities. That's what this is akin to. And so I'm just trying to tell people, don't pay them, fight them. And we'll fight them for you for free. And so where's the downside? If you were going to pay a $1,000 ticket, how about get us fighting it for you? And even if 2 years in the future we actually lose, all right, so you pay your $1,000. How are you further behind? You're not further behind. If anything, you delayed the payment 2 years.
Well, isn't there an upside to winning as well? Does that not set a precedent that, yes, this is an unconstitutional fine?
Well,
right?
I mean, there's so many, and I feel like the civil liberties establishment in Canada was very slow to act here. In fact, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association has been a deep disappointment to me, and I'm a monthly donor to them. John Carpe and his Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is doing a great job. I salute them. I have a good rapport with them personally. We sometimes interview them on our show. But other than that, there's very, very few. There is something in Toronto called the Canadian Constitution Foundation, it's similar to the JCCF. They are doing some good work too. But I think I've just listed everybody. The fact that we've taken 200 cases, I'll get the exact number from Sarah later today, is great. Hey, I'm going to read one or two more super chats. I'm going to get you to answer them, Drea. And then I'm going to show our viewers, and it's sort of bad not having the super chats. I apologize to everybody, but please understand why. Let's read the super chats, and then I want to show that one of our team has a new book out, and it's official today. So we'll come back to this, 12:40. Hey, let's read some super chats. Calvin Arndt, Ezra, no one in BC says Greater Vancouver area. Toronto is rubbing off on you. It's the Lower Mainland. I think there is something called the GVRD, Greater Vancouver Regional District.
There is.
So, yeah, but I take it that it's Lower Mainland. I get it. You're right. I have been saying GTA, Greater. Yeah, okay. What do you say, Drea? How do you phrase it?
Yeah, I would say the Lower Mainland. Like, I would probably have to Google exactly what GTA stands for, what's all included in that. So it's definitely not said as much.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I have been in Toronto too long. Autumn says, great reporting, Drea, and a heart and a smiley face. So there you go.
Thank you.
Drea, we're so proud of you. I get so many compliments about your videos, and we're just delighted to have you on the team. You've done great work on the pandemic beat, on the church beat, on the China beat, and just your style, your personal delivery. I just love listening to your story, let alone watching it. I think it's wonderful. So
thank you.
John Day says, I voted for Justin. It's a write-in vote. Hey, just there you go. A write-in vote.
He deserves that.
That's right. Someone named Queen Elizabeth, there's a chance this is not the real Queen Elizabeth. So proceed with caution. Says, I love the talent. Drea joining makes me so happy. Hearts. Right on, me too. Greg Graham says, Rebel News, Harvest Church in Kelowna was visited by the RCMP. Are we on top of that one, Drea?
No, I'll make a note. What was it? Harvest?
The Harvest Church in Kelowna was visited by the RCMP. Hey, Justin, can you look up, I think it's section 176 of the Criminal Code. I'm going from memory. Forgive me if I'm wrong. There is a passage in the Criminal Code which is very interesting to me.
Yes.
That prohibits anyone from interfering with a religious service. And by anyone, well, police are covered with that, covered by that, I would think. Did I remember the section correctly?
Yes, you did.
Can you pump up that just a little bit for my old eyes to see? Section 176. Every person, I'm just reading at the top there. Okay, I'll read 176 too. Disturbing religious worship or certain meetings. Everyone who willfully disturbs or interrupts an assemblage of persons met for religious worship or for a moral, social, or benevolent purpose is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction. And then point 3, everyone who at or near a meeting referred to in subsection 2 willfully does anything that disturbs the order or solemnity of the meeting is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction. So it's not just disturbing, but if you're nearby and you're disturbing, punishable on summary conviction. So just because you have a little tin badge that says health sheriff, cough cops, I'm the Corona cops. Hi guys, I just got hired to be a Corona. Hi guys, I got a badge and a water pistol. I'm going to bust up your church because I got a badge and a water pistol. Nah, mate, check out section 176 too. You step in here, you're the criminal. Literally a criminal. That's a crime. I was reading from the criminal code. That ain't no health authority ticket now.
No.
That's a criminal charge. So I would say this, anyone thinking of interrupting a church service, Drea, if I hear about it, if you hear about it, like we just heard that the Harvest Church in Kelowna was visited by the RCMP. That's not to say the law does not run in those churches. Of course, the law runs everywhere in Canada.
Right.
But if you actually interrupt a service, Lord Thunder and Jesus, I want to hear about it. Because if that happens, oh boy, that's a crime. I don't care if you got a little tin badge that says, I'm with the Corona cops.
Yeah. And you know what? I just heard, and I haven't had a chance to look into this, but I'll follow up, that when I was in Victoria, in Abbotsford, the police like banged on the door during the service and were banging. So maybe.
What? Oh my God, if that is true. If that is true. Banging on, well, I just read 176, 2 and 3.
Yes.
You know what?
I know. I'm going to follow right after this.
Oh my God. If the police are banging on the door of a church during a service, can you put that back up, Justin? Let's read the words again. So it's obviously you can go to a church. It's not a police-free zone. Right. Mm-hmm. Disturbing religious worship or certain meetings. Everyone who willfully disturbs or interrupts an assemblage of persons met for religious worship or for a moral, social, or benevolent purpose is guilty of an offense punishable on so it's disturbs or interrupts. And if you're telling me that cops were banging on the door when there was a service going on, so you have to understand it's an assemblage. That means people assembling, people coming together for religious worship or a moral, social, or benevolent purpose. So if there was a service, if they were meeting for some benevolent purpose, and some guy with a little tin badge bangs on the door like a madman, guess who the criminal is according to Section 176?
Yes.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Let me say this.
I hope there's video.
Law and order. If there's video, open and shut. Open and shut, baby. You know what? We got to tamp down these bad instincts. You know, I swear, and people might be skeptical, I swear the first 45 years of my life, I don't think I ever met a cop I didn't like. I was so pro-cop. You know, people rank professions by ethics. You know, lawyers and journalists are at the bottom, and at the top are doctors, pharmacists. People. You know, these public surveys of do you trust different professions? In my books, policemen were always number one. Always.
Yeah.
You have cops banging on a door of a church service? What are you doing?
Yep.
You know what? Most cops, I think, want to serve and protect. I think that's right. And
that's what they signed up for.
Yeah. But I think there are some who just like the power trip. And good police academies weed them out because they're a time bomb.
Right. But I think a frightening thing that's happening, I do have some officers reach out to me and they can't speak out on things, for different reasons. And, they're on the verge of quitting or have just quit. And I just say, we need you in there. I mean, can you imagine if all the good officers leave? What are we going to be left with?
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I see it in the UK. It scares the heck out of me when I watch police in the UK because they're about just a couple years ahead of us on this stuff. Okay, let me read some more. Peter Bass, when they see the rebel lawyer, they find an excuse to drop all charges. Well, not in all the cases, but I am very pleased. In fact, do you want to call up the short video that Avi did from Australia? If you go to fightthefines.com.au, it was just a very short video of a security guard. This was such a crazy charge. He went out for a hike with his family, and Avi shows where he was at. There was no one around for miles. Yeah. They call it bushwalking. I like that phrase when he said, "Oi, mate, we were out for a bushwalk." Blimey. Okay, now that's a mix of Cockney and Australian. I did a terrible accent there. I'd never heard bushwalking. I've heard of bushwhacking. Maybe it's anyway. So,
I think, is it the same thing?
I don't know. I just heard bushwalking. I said, what's that? Literally out for a hike. Do we have that there? It's the guy. It's sort of a pudgy guy. I think it would be a fightthefines.com.au. No, that's not that one. That's the bartender in in the outback. That's the crazy story. That's a crazy story too. Anyway, don't worry about it. It's just a great guy who, when we lawyered up for him, they dropped the charges.
Yeah.
And the thing about this guy is he was a security guard. So when he got this pandemic charge, and it was a BS charge because he was just out for a hike with his family, literally in the middle of nowhere, zero risk of virus, like so stupid. But because this charge was hanging over him, he could not renew his security guard's license. So he couldn't work. Could you imagine? You go out for a hike, you get this stupid fine, and then because you're a security guard, you can't work. So we lawyered up, if I'm remembering the story right. Oh, here, let's just take a quick, it sounds like Justin's found it. Here, take a quick look.
Perfect.
Have some good news from here in Melbourne, Australia. As you know, a couple months ago, we launched fightthefines.com.au to fight for ordinary Australians getting outrageous COVID fines. Now, the process itself takes some time, but today I can tell you, breaking news, our first fightthefines.com.au challenge has won. Police have withdrawn his outrageous fine. Mate, fantastic day. I know you're excited. I can see the smile on your face. Before we get into your reaction, first tell us the story. We haven't had a chance to even catch up on camera, only over the phone. So let people out there know what happened from the beginning.
So I've taken the family out on the bushwalk over in Mansfield. Beautiful mountains along there. And on the way back, heading home, ended up being pulled up by police, and they let us know we're breaking the law. So we said, we didn't know, legitimately. So we took the family straight home. Thanked them for the advice, and of course a month later in the mail was a fine. Didn't have the funds at the time, doing double shifts trying to support a family of four, and took put the fine in for court. I said, buy me a bit of time. Anyway, eventually I tried to get it revoked, and the sergeant said, no, you've been served with a summons, that's it, you're going to court.
I remember when you hit us up, your story was not only compelling because at the time it was hard to know, but there was, in addition to that, you told me something about your security license.
That's right, LRD refused to renew my license because...
So that's the licensing department of Victoria Police. They refused to renew your license while this was happening.
Because it's like it's a criminal offence.
And security is one of the industries that if you had the license, you could have worked.
Yeah, I couldn't because they refused to renew it. So working on the front lines in the hospitals, I haven't been able to work because they wouldn't renew it.
So how are you feeling today now that Madeline managed to get this revoked?
It's fantastic. It's amazing news to hear how it's been revoked, and yeah, they've dropped the charges, been pulled out of court. So
did you think this was going to happen?
I thought it was going to take a lot longer. I didn't expect it to happen so soon. And it's just exhilarating. Family's overwhelmed.
Thanks for joining us again, Madeline, and thank you for this very first win. How are you feeling about the news?
Oh, very happy, very, very pleased for Tony that we were able to get his matter withdrawn.
There's an example of a case that we lawyered up, boom, it was done. And we were just standing there, that was our Australian lawyer. So that's Avi, who's just a hoot, and that's our Australian lawyer, Madeline Smith, we have so many cases down under, but I just wanted to show that victory there. Avi's doing a great job.
Yes.
We've got that project in 3 jurisdictions now. Canada, of course, is where we started it. Australia, obviously, and they really needed the help. They had 23,000 tickets in the state of Victoria, Australia. 23,000. And people were terrified. In fact, that bearded guy, that goateed guy we showed for a second, he had $10,000 in fines, 2 $5,000 tickets. That's going to put his bar out of business. We just started in the UK, and I want to say to churches, and I'm a Jew, and Jews are wired a little differently than Christians, even though we're so similar. And these days, people are not that religious, so there's really no difference if you meet a Jew or a Christian on the street. But for people who deeply think about their faith, I think one of the differences is that Christians turn the other cheek. That's a little bit the more Jesus way. don't fight, don't pay, render unto Caesar, all that. And I think there are some Christian denominations that positively are pacifist. You know what I mean? They just won't fight back. We saw that with the Old Order Mennonites in Wellington County, Ontario. They just they won't quarrel with the government. Mm-hmm. Jews quarreling comes by nature. It's a quarrelsome lot. We're stiff-necked.
But Jesus...
So the Christians don't fight back, is what I'm saying. It drives me nuts.
Right. But, Jesus didn't necessarily quarrel, but he certainly didn't cave to the government. It was against the law for the lepers to be near the people, and he's walking right up to the lepers and healing them. And, he wouldn't have kept preaching the gospel had he listened to the government. So there is a line.
Yeah, well, and your job, if I may, you have many jobs, but I think one of your jobs is to tell people at these churches, like that guy, that pastor who we showed, I do this rule, I do this right, I'm just doing everything right. So he's trying to comply because he's an excellent citizen, he's a law-abiding guy, he's a role model, he's, what would Jesus do? So he's living that Christian life. Mm-hmm. But turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek. You know what? You only have 2 cheeks. I guess you got 4 cheeks you could turn. But after a while, I don't know if this is a Bible phrase, the Lord helps those who help themselves. Is that just a saying, or is that from the new book? The Lord helps those who help themselves. I think that might just be a saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually...
I know it talks about you having your own hand to help yourself, doesn't it?
Okay, well, there you go. Another way, look,
something like
a man not eat by
Let's look at the chat.
Look, there's a lot of talk in the Bible about, for God's sakes, you got to do something. It's like that old joke. It's like the old joke. Guys stranded on a desert island.
Yeah.
2 guys stranded on the desert island. I got to get this joke right.
I think I know it.
12:57. Boy, dear God, I'm praying to you. You got to rescue me. You got to get me off this island. All right, nothing. Anyhow, way in the distance, a boat goes by, and he didn't light a fire or anything. I'm not telling the joke very well. And he just said, "No, I'm praying to God." Okay. Next day, an airplane comes over. He doesn't wave around. He says, no, I'm praying to God. Praise God. A submarine comes right by. Periscope pops up, looks around. I'm making the joke up. I'm not doing a very good job. And then, anyway, he dies and he goes up to heaven or whatever. I'm not doing a good job. And he says, I don't understand. I prayed to God for help. He said, yeah, what do you think the boat and the airplane and the submarine were all about?
Exactly.
I didn't tell the joke very well. Yeah,
I think that was from Pursuit of Happiness, if I recall.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So my point is...
I tweeted the other day, it's like, would you rather fight a fine today to avoid a concentration camp tomorrow? You give an inch, they take a mile. There is a clear discrimination happening against religious services. These churches that we're covering are linked to 0 outbreaks. Yeah. It just makes no sense.
We've covered this cross country. We covered this in Manitoba. We covered this in Ontario. Yeah. We covered this in Aylmer. We covered this in Wellington. We covered this... we see it in New York. We see this in Montreal. Like, it's just universal. They're picking on the churches and some synagogues. Mm-hmm. You're so right. Okay, I was just terrible at telling that joke. I apologize for that. Hey, can I show you Rahil's new book video? Maybe it'll erase from your memory my terrible joke telling. Okay, here's Rahil. She's got a new book out, Drea. Check this out. Take a look.
I know. Yeah.
Do you think ISIS sprang out of nowhere? Do you think that the stabbing over London Bridge or the beheading in France was just an incident? Do you think 9/11 was something somebody did? No. They are all parts of a play produced and directed by the Muslim Brotherhood with the West as their stage. For many years, I've written and spoken out about Islamism, the political ideology that Western politicians refuse to acknowledge due to political correctness. Now read for yourself in my new book, The ABCs of Islamism, about how a radical ideology has taken over my faith and installed itself in the corridors of power in the Western world. Go to the abcsofIslamism.com to purchase my new book.
What do you think of that?
I'm so excited to read that book. This is actually an area that I definitely want to be more educated in myself. And so Rahil's the right person to help me with that.
Oh, she sure is. And the approach of the ABCs, it sort of breaks it up into bite-sized chunks. Look at that cover. That's very exciting. Hey, can you click on buy the book in the top right corner there, Justin? I want to see the ranking on Amazon because we just got this thing. And do you know how to find the ranking? If you scroll down just a little bit, yeah, right there. So it's ranked.
Oh, there you go.
It's actually number 1 in Church and State, religious studies ebooks. Number 5. It's ranked 1,113 in the Kindle store. We haven't even really announced it yet. Scroll back up and click on if you can toggle to the paperback edition. Paperback. And scroll down. Let's see where it is.
I saw China virus.
Yeah, that's right. 806 in books. I have to say, number 1 in Church and State in paperback. So we haven't even, and scroll back up. Yeah, there it is right there. So we haven't even really talked about this yet, and it's already doing well just based on the reputation of Rahil, and I think it's an interesting looking cover. The ABCs of Islamism. Not everybody knows what the difference between Islam and Islamism is. Well, that's what this book is about. And it's not it's not academic. You don't have to be like a professor to understand it. I mean, Rahil's really smart, but it's written for the interested lay person. So I would like to encourage anybody to go there. And as you can see, if you use Amazon Prime or whatever, it's a free Kindle book. If you want the paperback, it's $20. I think it's well worth it. And you know what I really believe? I think this book has to go to number 1, not just because it's a great book, but I want to show the world that when someone like Rahil publishes a book, we support them. So buy it because it's a good book, but buy it to support Rahil and buy it to show all the fancy pants at the Toronto Star and other places that will not review it, that we don't need their imprimatur to have a successful book.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm super excited.
Let me whip through a few more super chats, and then they're not even super chats. They're just chats that Justin found.
Right.
And then I think we got to go. And before we do, we're going to do one more shout out to Viewers Choice Awards.ca. When last I checked this morning, we had over 8,000 votes, that's a serious contest.
It is. That is. I'm impressed.
And, Justin, you want to put that on screen just for 1 second? I know you're busy doing stuff. I mean, it's just what the voting page looks like. Key, Drea, Sheila, Andrew, Avi, Rahil, David, Tamara. And what do we say? Scroll down a little bit more. Voting ends Thursday, that's tomorrow, the 17th, at 5 p.m. Eastern. Well, the reason for that is because we're announcing the winner at 7 p.m. Eastern, so we got to end the voting. So get your votes in there.
Maybe just before that, a few hours before that, I'll shut things down. There'll be this spike for me.
There you go. That's right. I'm going to whip through 4 more little chats here. Free for life. All Rebel reporters are doing a fantastic job. That's what I'm hearing. People saying, Ezra, don't make me choose. It's like saying, who's your favorite child? Everyone loves the Rebel reporters. Aaron Grimm, great reporting, Drea. You have my vote. Well, there you go.
Yay,
there you go. Ed 751, Drea is awesome. Love from Hong Kong. Well, isn't that nice?
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Jimmy Zhao, Ezra doesn't even tell good dad jokes. I confess that I did a terrible job today. I did a terrible job with that joke.
It wasn't the worst.
Well, it was pretty bad. All right, it's 1:04. We're a little bit over time. Folks, we will get the super chats, God willing, back up really quick because they're only down for that technical reason. We haven't been punished. We just unhooked from our multi-channel network, and that we actually, there were other things that happened to us because of that. It's not unexpected. It's just hopefully going to be remedied really quickly, because we actually have no ads on any of our videos right now because of it, but it's not a punishment thing, and hopefully we'll be back, who knows, maybe even by today. All right, Drea, great to see you, and we'll see you tomorrow for the for the Rebbies. That's what we're calling the awards. It's a terrible name, but we'll see you here tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.
There you have it, Drea Humphrey, just outstanding. Got to vote for her or the other candidates. Do we have a dog video to end today? Okay, Drea, I'll say goodbye to you. We'll say goodbye to the viewers, and we'll end, as I like to do, with a dog video curated by Justin. See you later, everybody.